In the sweltering heat of late July 1966, Nigeria teetered on the edge of collapse. The January coup, led largely by Igbo officers, had toppled down the civilian government, killing prominent northern leaders. The Sardauna, who was the northern premier, the prime minister, senior northern officers, and political leaders were gone. The most senior military officer, Major General Johnson Aguiyi-Ironsi, emerged as the military head of state.
The federal military government in Nigeria has taken over the administration of the country.
To many in the north, it smelled like an Igbo power grab. Ironsi then poured petrol on fire. Decree number 34, made by Ironsi, abolished Nigerian federal structure and replaced it with a unitary system. He unified the civil service and abolished regional autonomy. Ironsi's decree number 34 in May may have seemed as the most sensible thing to have done at that time, but that only fueled fury and grew rage among the people in the north. On the night of July 28 and 29, 1966, northern soldiers struck back in what became known as the Counter-Coup, one of the bloodiest in African history. Key plotters include the fiery officer like Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Mohammed, the charismatic inspector of signal, Major Theophilus Danjuma, and others from northern units. They moved swiftly across barracks in Abeokuta, Ibadan, and Lagos. To the people in the east, everything looked like administrative reform. To the people in the north, it looked like a conquest. Barrack conservations turned into conspiracy. Whispers turned into plans. By July, the anger was ready to explode. In Ibadan, Aguiyi-Ironsi was visiting Lieutenant Colonel Adekunle Fajuyi, who was the then military governor of the western region at that time. Northern troops, led by Murtala Mohammed, surround the government house. Fajuyi had a choice. He would have left Ironsi there, walked away, and survived the attack. He refused to abandon Ironsi, and both men were executed. Some had it that Aguiyi-Ironsi was heavily charmed, that even bullet does nothing to him. So the military troops tied up his hand and connected it to a moving vehicle. So the vehicle was now moving at a very fast speed, which decimated his body. The coup targeted Southerners, especially Igbo officers and men. Around 240 Southern soldiers were killed. 3/4 of them were Igbo. The violence didn't stop at the barracks. It spilled into the streets, ignited waves of retaliatory ethnic pogrom across the northern region. Armed mobs, often with the connivance of participation of northern soldiers and vigilantes, hunted down Igbo civilians and other Easterners in cities like Kano, Jos, Kaduna, and Zaria. Victims were dragged from their homes, markets, and trains. Some mutilated, others burned alive. Entire families were wiped out. The scene was an unimaginable horror that has traumatized the Igbo populace till this day. The estimate of Igbo civilians' deaths during the pogrom around May to October 1966, peaking after July 29, especially on the Black Thursday and September 29, was around 10,000 Igbos were killed, and it peaked till 30,000, and other Easterners were killed in the same time. By mid-1967, up to 2 million refugees, mostly Igbo, had fled the northern cities in a mass exodus, abandoning homes, businesses, and lives, streaming back to the eastern region for safety. These massacres were seen as vengeance for the January coup, which northerners perceived as Igbo-led domination. The violence poisoned trust across ethnic line forever. This genocide of the Igbo populace and the disorganization of the North and the West left a power vacuum in Nigeria. The coup leaders bypassed more senior and divisive figures like Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Mohammed, who had strong support among northern troops, but others feared his volatility. Instead, they settled for a compromise. Yakubu Gowon, Gowon was a 31-year-old Christian from Angas, an ethnic group in the Middle Belt. He was neither Hausa nor Fulani nor Muslim. He was seen as neutral enough to calm the north and west. He had no strong political base, but his calm demeanor and army credential made him acceptable. On August 1st, 1966, Gowon was installed as the head of state and supreme commander. In his first broadcast, Gowon promised reconciliation. "I will continue to recognize the regions. There is no basis for suspicion and mistrust." He appointed an Igbo officer, Lieutenant Colonel Philip Effiong, as his chief of staff as a gesture of inclusion. But gesture couldn't heal the wounds that the genocide of the Igbo populace has caused by the Northerners. Gowon's government moved to restructure Nigeria with plans to divide the country into 12 states, which was announced in May 1967. This was viewed in the East as a direct attack on the Igbo influence, carving out minority areas from the eastern region and diluting its oil-rich power base. Curfews, arrest of the eastern officials, and military clampdowns only deepened suspicion, and the East felt cornered. Trust in the federal government evaporated. Gowon tried symbolic gestures. He would speak of unity. Later he would say, "No victor, no vanquished." But in 1966, those words did not exist yet. Instead, what people saw were curfews, arrest, military patrol. His idea to divide Nigeria into 12 states, Eastern leaders like Lieutenant Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu looked at this as a strategy to weaken the eastern region and seize control of the oil-producing area. What the federal government called restructuring, the East saw it as dismemberment. January 1966 destroyed political trust in Nigeria, and July 1966 destroyed coexistence. Hausa cannot live with the Igbo, Igbo cannot live with the Hausa and the Yoruba, and vice versa. After the massacre, many in the East no longer debate reform. They debated survival. Could Nigeria protect them, or had the Federation become a threat? The conversation shifted from unity to exit. Meetings were held, accusations flew. Regional leaders no longer spoke as countrymen but as adversaries. Nigeria stood at the edge of collapse. The blood of 1966 did not dry, it hardened. And from that hardened resentment would rise a declaration that shook Africa. A new flag, a new anthem, a new nation. Biafra.